Good afternoon, and welcome to Smithsonian Gardens Let's Talk Gardens, a weekly webinar series where we hope to turn your brown thumbs green. Today, though, we have a little bit different take on our webinar, and we're going to talk to you about what you can do during this time of the year that maybe you don't want to be outside in the garden anymore, but the garden still is filled with many activities for you to do inside, believe it or not. So, today's housekeeping, we'd like you to put your questions in the chat box, please, so that at the end of the presentation, I will ask the presenter to be able to help us out with any questions that you have. And we would like you to make sure that only this browser window is open for your optimal viewing and hearing conditions. Audio makes a big difference if you don't have anything else open. This is the first of our holiday series, and that's what we want to get you excited about. The gardens spill over into what we do inside and how we make our homes beautiful, decorative, and what kind of gifts we can get from the garden. So Melinda Witcher is our speaker today. Melinda is one of our supervisory horticulturists, and she's going to talk to us about why this subject means so much to her and why she wanted to share the information with you. So Melinda, I'm going to disappear, but you go ahead and take it away, and I'll see you at the end of the presentation so we can talk to our attendees and answer their questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Melinda Witcher, and I'm really happy to be here today presenting to you. I've always loved gardening, but for those who have known me longest, they know that I've also loved crafting. I actually was an art teacher at an elementary school for a year. I won't tell you how long ago. So I decided to do my talk about some different crafts that you can do to give your garden some character when maybe the flowers and plants aren't as interesting or blooming as quite as much. So my first question to you though is, what comes to mind when you think of lawn ornaments? I'm gonna give everybody a minute to think about it. Cindy's not there, so I can't hear your answers. But did anybody think of this? Probably. So lawn ornaments have a bad reputation for being tacky. And it's funny because the pink flamingo that originally was created in 1957 by a sculptor named Donald Featherstone is really what people think of when they think of lawn ornaments. And lawn ornaments do not have to be pink flamingos. They can be classy and beautiful too. So why do we add ornaments to the garden? There are lots of different reasons. One reason is having creative container gardens. I know we had a Let's Talk Gardens earlier about people who have really small garden spaces and maybe don't have a huge yard, and creating container gardens as a way to use your small space and still garden. Year-round interest. There are many plants that give you year-round interest, but there are many garden ornaments that can help you with that too. Taking advantage of light, reflection, and wind. There's so many things that are already there existing in your garden, and your garden ornaments and your garden decorations can just accentuate those things. Building habitat and encouraging wildlife go hand in hand. You know, there's lots of bird houses out there, there's lots of bird baths, but you can find one that really shows your personality. It shows the personality of your garden. Repurposing old things. I love visiting thrift stores and coming up with ideas of things that maybe don't, quote, belong in a garden, but really look beautiful once they get there. And then, of course, creating themes in Whimsy. Totally personal decision. If you want your garden to have garden gnomes or fairies or anything like that, that's totally up to you. So here's some creative containers that I found. I tried to give you kind of a variety. The bathtub obviously is something that somebody found in, I don't know, a home store or a thrift store. And instead of looking at it as a bathtub, they looked at it as a garden container, which is really neat. Really like too the log. You can find things in nature and take them into your garden and just turn them into a container. The boots to me are great, something that you would never think of as a container, and all of a sudden there it is with flowers growing out of it. For year-round interest, a lot of people think of color for year-round interest, and it really isn't all about color. It's about having a focal point and something in the garden that sets it apart, that lights it up. And so I really like the picture in the top middle with the birds in the background. It doesn't add color, but it does still make that garden really interesting. It gives you that really nice focal point. You can use color, having fake flowers when your real flowers aren't blooming. And the one in the top corner is really interesting to me because someone really just found some tea kettles, stuck a branch in the ground and turned the tea kettles upside down on it. Couldn't be easier, but really, really, really cute. Taking advantage of light. There's so many ornaments out there that you can get that are glass. Marbles are like really popular on different garden tchotchkes. Crystals. In this particular picture, I love the one down at the bottom because you can see that somebody went to a thrift store and bought vases and punch bowls and made them into mushrooms. And those mushrooms, I guarantee, gather all the light and just reflect it right back and are probably really gorgeous. Wind is another thing. Garden doesn't just have to be visual. It can also have auditory. You know, you can hear the garden, you can hear the whooshing, you can hear the bells if you have wind chimes. So think about your garden beyond just what you're looking at. And then of course, reflection. Reflection is really great because it actually expands your garden. This is another really good one for someone who has a very small space. Anything reflective is going to really make your garden look that much bigger. And it's also going to take all of these things that are already beautiful and everybody gets to see them twice. So building habitat. This picture shows a bug hotel. Is it on your left or your right? Well, the bug hotel is become really, really popular. It gives our bugs a place to overwinter, where they're hibernating basically, or they need to lay their eggs, or it depends on the different bugs, insects. But insect hotels have become a really popular way to help our insect population grow, but they can also be really beautiful too. So that's kind of, you know, combining form and function. The top one is a toad house. I've seen toad houses in all different varieties, very cute. The one at the bottom is a terracotta pot turned upside down with straw taped into it, or not taped, glued into it. And that's another insect hotel. Couldn't be easier. Just something, you know, to put into your garden for the insects, but also something for you to look at during the off season. Encouraging wildlife usually means either giving them habitat, which we've already talked about, or providing them with something to eat. In the winter months, it's harder for animals to find things to eat. So there's lots of really creative ways that you can put out food for animals, particularly like the wire one up in this one that has the apple in it. I really think that's a neat idea. It's super easy. You could have them all over the place. You could have citrus for butterflies and you could have fruits for the birds. If you want to feed squirrels, I know some people try to avoid squirrels. Some people want to attract squirrels, and just couldn't be easier. And if you use colored wire or some kind of metallic reflective wire, it would just make it all that much better. So repurposing is really just finding a really interesting piece and putting it into your garden as is. The one in the middle here is a picture that I took in a garden that I visited up in Pennsylvania, where somebody changed their stairs and just took their old stairs and put them right in the middle of a field. I've never seen anything like it, but it got so many comments. So many people were stopping to look at it. It was really neat. And you can see an anchor, a chandelier, old-fashioned kitchen. All of these things look really, really neat and add some interesting depth to these gardens. And this is, of course, the most colorful page, my themes in Whimsy. And this, again, is totally a personal decision. I love the idea of a theme garden. If you wanted to have a fairy garden, you have your fairies hanging. You can have fairy doors. You can have fairy houses. The other one that's on here, the game pieces, that's so neat. What if they took the game pieces and put them all around the garden, or came up with different looking game pieces, this from this game, this from that game, and then plant it all around that. There's just so many things that you can do. Like if you have a favorite game, a favorite movie, a favorite book, turn your garden into a themed garden based around that thing that you love. So we're going to talk about crafting a little bit now. So I put marine glue on here. I'm sorry, I'm totally losing it. There's some basic supplies that you're going to want if you're going to build things in your garden. Marine glue is very important because it's waterproof. And obviously, if you're going to have your garden tchotchkes live outside, you want them to be able to stay outside all weather, rain, shine, whatever. Caveat to that is there's been times when I've put stuff out in my garden with the knowledge that it's only going to be out there for a year or two, and then I'm going to have to bring it in, and that's okay too. Concrete, a couple of the projects that I'm going to show you are concrete projects, and probably the most unique project I'm going to show you is a concrete project. So I will give you kind of a short lesson how to use concrete. Wire, I use wire on tons of projects because it's so versatile. Paint, obviously, everyday tools, and then findings. So people always say, what are findings? Findings are anything that you have found at any type of a store, garage sale, estate sale, hardware store, anywhere that you saw and went, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to use that for. And it's not necessarily what it was made for, but it just sparked that creativity. So the first project I'm going to show you that I made was a bird bath. So the picture that you can see right now on here is a candle holder that I found at a thrift store for $2. It's about 2.5 feet tall. I did have to hammer down the top of it because it had a spike sticking up for the candle. I also had to clean it. Marine glue is only going to stick to stuff that's nice and clean. I took a bowl that I found. The bowl was $2.75 and put marine glue around the bottom. Now, something I want to tell you about going to a thrift store is thrift stores always have deals. That bowl was actually an $11 bowl, but I went on a special day when everything that had a red tag was 75% off. So I got it for $2.75 instead. So if you go to the thrift store, definitely ask when you go in, what kind of specials are you having? Because they always, always have them. So attached my bowl to the top of the candle holder. The thing I was worried about with this one was that it was top heavy. So I took some cement, put it in a bowl, and cemented in the bottom. And here was the result. Now I have this beautiful bird bath in my garden. I buried the cement so you can't see it, and it's gorgeous and I love it there. And it cost about $4.75. Another project is bird feeders, which you can make a bird feeder out of just about anything. I'm not telling you what I made mine out of yet. Oh, it says it right on there, tea set. So I did make bird feeders out of a tea set. I used marine glue and pencil rod. So pencil rod is a steel rod that's about the width of a pencil. And what you can see here in this picture is that I'm gluing it onto bottle caps. And the reason for that is because I was trying to get some more surface area because I didn't want my ceramic teacups to not be stable on top of the steel rod. So I put a really huge chunk of glue in there to hold them in. Once they were dry, I turned them over and put more marine glue on the top, and then put each of my teacups on there and let it sit there for about 24 hours. Check the weather first, made sure that it wasn't going to be rainy. And this is the result. Cute little tea set full of birdseed. Suet feeder is a really fun project that you can do with kids too. I have kids, I have nieces and nephews, I have a Girl Scout troop, I have, like I said, I used to teach, so a lot of my projects you can definitely do with kids. So for this one, I went to the thrift store and I found these cookie cutters, $3 for the whole set. And to make the suet, all I do is I put birdseed with coconut oil. I've looked at recipes where they tell you to melt the coconut oil. I don't suggest you do that. Coconut oil, I think, has a melting temperature of like 76 degrees, somewhere right in there. So really, all you have to do is just put your hands in it and mix it all together, and it will all stick without you having to actually melt it into liquid. So after that, you're going to take all that mixed up oil and birdseed, stuff it into the cookie cutters. Another thing I want to tell you with this one, you could tell in that picture that I hadn't tied them yet. You do need to tie them first because once there's birdseed in there, you can't tie a string through the cookie cutter. But this was the end result of that project. I think it turned out very cute. And actually, one of my nieces helped me with this one. So proof positive that kids love this project. Fairy door is another really easy one, especially if you've got little kids. Popsicle sticks. Everybody's got popsicle sticks laying around. The great thing about popsicle sticks is you can actually cut them with scissors. So what I usually do is I draw on it first where I want to cut it. Then I cut each piece individually. And at that point, I glue them all onto a single piece so that it sticks together. If you glue it together first and then try to cut it, the scissors don't cut it nearly as well, and cutting it with scissors is really the easiest thing. And all you have to do is add some stones, and it's a perfect little fairy door. What little kid doesn't want 100 of these around their garden? Another simple project, something that I have seen more and more as I look at gardens, is just stacked stones. When I look at them though, I'm always like, well, how do they keep those stones perfectly stacked and not fall over? Some of them look precariously stacked. And so once again, I collected up some stones, and I did get more of the pencil rod that I mentioned earlier. Found a drill bit that was just barely bigger than the pencil rod. So to go back to the drill bit just for a second. So the drill you see me using in this picture is a hammer drill. My husband is a carpenter, so I have at my fingertips tons and tons of different tools that I understand other people won't have. So if you have a drill though, a drill is a really basic tool, and hopefully most people have at least a drill. You can get either a ceramic or diamond drill bit, and you can still drill through rocks with that kind of a drill. So I drilled holes through all of these rocks, and I will admit to you that I broke 2 of them while I was doing it. Another tip, drill slowly. The faster you drill, the faster they break. So you can see I put the pencil rod in the ground and then stack the stones on it. Pencil rod disappears, and you have this Zen-like stack of stones in your garden. And nobody has to know that it's being held up secretly. Concrete mushrooms. I'm going to go through this one real quick because I'm going to talk more about concrete later. Plastic bowls in a plastic cup that I got at the dollar store. Filled them up with concrete. Spray painted the top red, the bottom white. Used marine glue to stick the 2 together. What you see in that picture at the bottom is just a regular old piece of printer paper that I cut a circle out of, and I held it over top and I sprayed the white through the circle. And these little guys are the result of that. That project, I mean, it took a couple of days, but only because I had to wait for the cement to dry. So I'm going to hit play on this video. And this video is, I have a couple of videos that I'm going to show you, and they're all me explaining how I made something, but actually showing you how I did it at the same time. And the reason I did that is because I knew on this platform, I wasn't actually going to be able to to do a demonstration. So hopefully a couple of video demonstrations will help clarify some stuff. So here you go.
So I almost feel like I'm too young for this one. It's so simple and everybody loves it. So what I did was, we had a tree in our front yard and the branches came down. So I'm so excited whenever we're taking down a tree for a branch. I'm like, oh no, save them for me. What we do is take a part of a branch that's about 2 feet from here to here, and then take the top and make yourself a nice angle there. I got 4 of those laid out. But what I did was I also got these little shorties, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. They're going to become, some people say they're Santa Claus. That's fine too if you want to make Santa Claus. I like to make them. Now, literally for this, all you need is gloves, red spray paint, white spray paint, spray paint, and a piece of paper. So as you can see with this one, I've created a Santa hat on this nice oval shape. And this is how you do it. Take a piece of paper, cover it up, spray paint. That is literally it. So here, you're going to do the same thing. Just going to cover up the red. So you want to leave a little patch of this wood right here, okay? So, wait, not cooperating. So I realized when I was doing this dome over here that the paint didn't really show up. So what I did was I went through to every single one and I hiked the white up a little bit so that I could take my template, put it over top, give everyone a nose. So then you've got to add the eyes to your gnome, and all I use is just a permanent marker. So for this guy, I put his eyes kind of right between his nose and his hat. But if you guys want to vary it up, maybe put them like this. One more off each side. Maybe a little bit bigger than the other guy. You know, add a little personality to each of your gnomes so that they don't all look like mine and they don't all look like each other. Have fun.
Melinda, some people had trouble hearing what you said. If you could just recap what you said about spray painting, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I apologize that people aren't able to hear. I did have it at full volume, so hopefully that's a temporary issue. So what I was saying was that these guys, they're really easy because you're basically just spray painting the top portion and spray painting the bottom portion. And in order to get that nice straight line, you just hold a piece of paper up against the stump and spray the part that's still visible. And I mean, it really couldn't be easier. You could do any color. I did this with my nieces once, and they made a Santa, and then they made all the little ones with green hats so that they were all elves. I've done them with blue hats so that they look more like gnomes than Santas. I know these ones look completely like Santas. I got it. But as far as the spray paint, I just used the an indoor-outdoor spray paint that is a paint and primer in one. So so that when it rains or whatever, it won't actually wear off. And then I wanted to show you this because they don't just have to be in your garden. You can put them around your fireplace. You can put them at your front door. I actually had one lady who used to make these about the size of a tube of lipstick, and she made dozens of them, and she had them all up on her mantle, and it looked like this little chorus. It was really, really cute. So you can do these really in any shape, size, whatever, and they always, always look this cute. So this is a very short video showing you how I put together these wind chimes. The first thing I'm going to say, because I know it says driftwood on here, is one of the things you need. I actually live right next to the Chesapeake Bay, so I go and I collect driftwood all the time. But you could use anything for the hanger part of this. You could use a spoon. You could use a stick that you found in your yard. You could use something circular. You could use a cookie cutter. You could use just about anything. And the main idea of this still works. project can literally be anything. Luckily, I live right next to the Chesapeake Bay, so I went and found a piece of driftwood that I thought looked pretty neat, and I used that for my hanger. So just bending the wire, trying to get it to the shape that I want. Use a second type of wire, partly for the color, and also partly to weave beads onto the bottom part of the hanger. That way I have something to tie my threads onto. And that's how I'm going to add the strings of colorful beads to the bottom of the hanger. You can use any kind of beads you want. I was going on the cheap, so I just used cheap pony beads, but you can do more fancy things. You can do whatever you want to them. I add bells to the end of mine because, of course, if it's going to be wind chimes, it should make some beautiful sounds. They're really visually, you could just see what was happening. The only other thing I will tell you with this guy is I do have lots of different gauges of wire that I use. This is actually floral wire that I found at the dollar store. And the thread that I used is like a really, really thick thread, not just regular old, sewing thread, because it's going to be exposed to the outside, and I wanted something that was going to hold up a little bit longer. But you could do this with anything, any kind of more interesting beads. I know the beads that I used were just cheapo beads, but I've seen people do really, really beautiful things, and it couldn't be easier. I feel like I've said it couldn't be easier 100 times, but it couldn't be easier. So the Spiral Suncatcher, let me play this one for you, and then I will talk to you about this one. The Suncatcher project is not complicated, but it is time consuming. It's all about bending wire at the beginning, trying to create that really strong spider web of wires that's going to be able to hold up the marbles that you need to attach to it, because they do have some weight to them. And wrapping the marbles, you want to use a little bit of thicker wire, because again, that's where all the weight is. So start on the flat side of the marble and push the wire, wrapping it all the way around. Usually when I've got it all the way wrapped, I kind of shake it to make sure the marble won't fall out. So you're going to wrap as many marbles as you want for your project. Some people use tons, some people just use a few. And then you're going to use the really thin wire, the 26 gauge, to attach the marbles to the spider web that you've created around the spiral. Once you're finished, you can use more copper wire to create a hanger and hang it up in a tree. So again, kind of self-explanatory. If you look at it, this one was really just time consuming more than anything else, because when you're weaving the wire, you always want to weave and create a knot every time you weave it around the main spiral. Because if you don't, then it's just going to slide up and down around the spiral. So you really have to weave it into a knot and then go on to the next spot. But again, it's mostly dollar store stuff. The 8 gauge copper wire is probably the most expensive thing that I bought at all throughout any of this. And I used it for hangers for a whole bunch of the different projects. And it makes a perfect hanger, and that way I don't have to buy hangers. So here's another picture of that. And it really turned out nicely, and you can already see here how it's catching the sun. So this is going to be the longest video. This one's almost 10 minutes, but it's really going to explain to you how to make a concrete leaf for your garden. And I think you're really, really going to like this one. Kind of starts out with me just telling you what I did, because in this part, I just drew an oak leaf onto a big piece of wax paper. When using the hot glue gun, make sure that the larger veins get extra layers of hot glue. That way your leaf will look more realistic when it's done with the concrete. So what I have
as you can see, this is extremely fine, and actually the aggregate in this particular mix is very fine sand. It's actually finer even than the sand that I have here, which is playground sand. So the aggregate. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mix the concrete and set it on top of our piece that we created. This is the one that I already did the hot glue on, so that it's got the drainage already there. What I've done here too is I have some sand underneath it. Now this sand was wet beforehand. The reason for that is so that it could kind of be packed and stay together. So the reason that we want it all packed down and wet is because for this particular project, I'm not making stepping stones. I'm just making ornaments in my garden. So I don't want my leaf to be flat. I want it to be a little bit crinkly. You know, when you see a leaf on the ground, it very rarely has just fallen and be flat. So by using the sand, I'm going to be able to kind of push and pull along the edges and make it look a little bit more natural. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing my concrete with water. I do it by sight and by texture, so I can't really give you a recipe, like a 1 cup to 1 cup kind of thing. But what I will say is that I want it to be kind of like brownie batter when I've got all the water and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Always start with less, because you can always add more water. Once there's water in there, you can't take it back out. So I like to mix with my hands, obviously wearing gloves. There are acidic chemicals in concrete you never want to use. So I've got this all mixed, and before I go any further, luckily my loving husband was out here to tell me that I said something incorrect just a minute ago. It's actually not acidic chemicals, it's alkaline chemicals that are in concrete, and they'll literally suck the moisture right out of your skin. So either way, just don't touch it with your bare hands. So here's the texture that I have it. Like I said, it's kind of a brownie batter mix. Cake batter is way too thin. You want to be able to pick it up and have it kind of hold its shape a little bit. But when you thump it down, it should kind of moosh back out. So you can kind of see. So what I'm going to do is take some of this concrete and I'm going to make a ball with it. I'm going to start at the top of my list. I'm just going to start right now, just kind of taking lumps of concrete and working my way down the central vein. So right now, it's kind of a lumpy mess. That's okay. Right now, I'm just trying to fill it. I've got my hook loop all filled in. What I'm going to do now to make it just back nice and even is I'm just taking a paintbrush and I'm just kind of running it along the back. Part of the reason for this is because, as I showed you before, I was kind of chunking sections and then pushing them together. This just kind of combines them all really nicely. By the way, dollar store paintbrush, so I don't care if it gets ruined, if I have to throw it away afterwards. This is not the first time I've used this though, so it hasn't happened yet, but if it did get ruined, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Melinda, can you go ahead and talk over the audio? I've been doing some presentations, some notes, but if you could just tell us what you're saying, I think that would be best.
So like turn the audio off on the video and just try to remember what I said?
Correct.
Okay. I will do my best.
Thank you.
So just to give you a recap up to that point, the things that I said before in the video that were important is that when you're purchasing concrete, you want to purchase concrete that has a very fine aggregate. If you get something that has chunks in it or rocks or even really coarse sand, then when you've completed your project is going to have those pieces kind of sticking out of the top, and any of the fine work, the detail work that you did isn't going to show up through it. The next important thing I said, I guess, was mixing the concrete to a brownie batter texture. So hopefully everybody could at least see that in the video. And then when I was laying it out on the leaf, it's really just a matter of, laying it out section by section, because you want it all to be about the same thickness throughout the entire project. And the easiest way to do that is really to just do it one little section at a time. So let's see. So now I'm showing a Farfugium leaf and just kind of saying, you know, if you don't want to make your own leaf, like the other one that I made, you know, I wanted a giant oak leaf. I was trying to make something a little bit more artistic, but using an existing leaf can be just as beautiful, just as artistic, probably more beautiful even sometimes. So I got this leaf from one of our gardens here at the Smithsonian. And right now I'm telling everyone not to steal leaves from the Smithsonian. And also, please don't steal leaves from your neighbors or from any other gardens. If you're looking for a big, fancy, beautiful leaf and you see something somewhere, certainly go ask, but please don't just take it. And this is really the exact same process. Same type of concrete mix, same brownie batter consistency, and I just packed it all in there. So I waited for 2 days. 2 days was partly because of the cooler temperatures that we've had. When it's hot out, you can do it and you can check them after 1 day, but I really, really wanted to make sure that they were all the way dry. So I'm pulling one of the Farfugium leaves off. Visuals are going to speak louder than words here. So I guess too, I'm showing there's the edges are a little bit crinkly, and sometimes you can just like pop off the pieces that aren't lined up, or you can use a metal file and file some of those pieces off, and it works just wonderfully. So pulling the leaf off, you can see how nice it turned out. There are some bubbles in it. I have not yet figured out how to get rid of bubbles, but I still think it looks nice. And I'm sure there's some super talented person out there who does know how to get rid of the bubbles, but I haven't figured it out yet. When you're making something like the mushrooms, you can get rid of the bubbles a little more easily because you can kind of bang it down on the table the same way you do with a cake pan. But when you're doing leaves, you just can't really do that. So the oak leaf it was not my first try at making an oversized leaf. I believe I'm just confessing that the first couple of tries that I did not work at all and were terrible and either broke or looked very bad. So pulling the wax paper off, you can see that the hot glue is still stuck in the concrete. So I just had to take a tool and pluck out one end of it, and then watch how nicely it all comes out almost in one piece. So with the oak leaf or with any leaf that you want to do or any project that you want to do, they actually sell concrete dye so that you can dye it in advance and have it be a specific color. Usually when I paint the concrete, I don't want it to be like a super bright opaque color. So I'll take acrylic paint and mix it with water and brush it on that way. And that way it looks a little bit more natural and not quite so, so dense. I don't want dense paint. I just want the color. Pretty sure that's all I'm saying, so I'm going to go on to my next picture. And this is just a picture of obviously these two being finished. The Farfugium look really nice. They're really a kind of a perfect stepping stone. So let's see. Oh, and that's everything that I had. I'm finishing 5 minutes early, Cindy. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. That was fabulous. Sorry, I apologize to our viewers for the sound.
Yeah.
There's always a glitch, and every time no matter how much we practice, there always seems to be a glitch. But we are going to fill all those answers in with things that were missed on the video and look forward to some of the things. Number one was, what type of concrete did you use again? It was, I know we can't say names, but what is special about that concrete that we're looking for?
Yeah, so unfortunately I can't say the brand name. Concrete and cement are different. You don't want cement, you want concrete. And the concrete that I use is, it's usually used for patching. So patching parts of concrete that have broken or that there are cracks, because the aggregate that's in it, the sand that's in it, is really, 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 really fine. And you know, when you saw me running my fingers through it, you could see that I mean, almost like clouds up into dust because it's so fine. And that's what you want to use so that you can really see all the details on your project.
Yes, I agree with you. But your innovative way of putting the veins in was spot on. I've never seen that before. That was excellent because I've always tried to be able to put forms down, twigs or whatever, so that I can make the little venation that goes along with it. So thank you for that tip. That tip was worth it for everything. Are they strong enough that you can walk on those
Yes,
concrete? Oh, excellent.
most
How about
definitely.
leave them out for the winter?
Yep, mine are going to stay out for the winter.
Excellent,
So
excellent.
if you, what I will say though, is that if you do have one that's very curved, um, then the potential obviously for it breaking is much higher. So you do want to try to dig out the ground so that it's completely supported in the ground. But yeah, you can step all over it.
That's great. Why don't we stop sharing the screen and it'll just be you and I being crafty horticulturists to be, oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Everybody should take a screenshot of that so that they can
Ta-da!
remember that's a
So we can
perfect gift
remember
from your
everything.
gardens postcard. Uh, I'm ready now to go get my hands dirty and try making some of these because they're such great suggestions. Thank you. One of them was for the cookie cutter, for the Suet cookie cutter. Can you take that cookie cutter off of the Suet once it's formed, or do you need to leave it on there?
So you can, but as I said, the coconut oil has a pretty high melting temperature. So if you do it in the winter, then definitely you can.
Mhm.
I like to leave it in there because I just find that you know, they do fall apart, and especially too once the birds start eating them, if they happen to like eat a whole bunch of the section that has the string, then it'll break and it'll fall off. So you don't have to leave the cookie cutter on there. I think it looks pretty. I talked about, you know, reflection and color and things like that, and I think it adds all of those things along with the suet. But definitely you can take it off and see how long it lasts, especially if you're somewhere cold. You definitely can do it.
That's excellent. One of my favorites are the little concrete mushrooms. I'm not a mycologist, but I love it when I come upon those little red and white mushrooms, and those are real. You can walk in the woods and see those little red and white. I always feel like there's got to be a garden gnome next to it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering, or the audience is wondering, do you have any other projects that you wanted to tell us about? I know we were both talking about the bathtub because in my previous life, I got a bathtub, one of those cast iron bathtubs, and I turned it into a water garden. So
Oh,
I actually had a shower and it recirculated the water and I put in water plants and it was fun. How about you? What
yeah,
other
that sounds
things?
great. So I didn't actually put any containers in there just because a container garden can be just about anything. But I'll tell you a funny story. My husband and I went to the landfill over the weekend, and there was a guy in the vehicle in front of us, and he was throwing a bunch of stuff away, and he was throwing away an old grill. So I approached this guy and I said, "Hey, can I have your old grill?" And he's like, "It doesn't work, and it's broken, it's rusted." Yeah, but I'm gonna put a garden in it. And he was like, "Okay, crazy lady, here you go, have my grill."
Mhm.
So you know, definitely going to be putting a container garden in my new grill.
Excellent. That
But
would make a really neat base for a fountain too.
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
The other thing, I guess, it's not really a different project, but I've collected bricks that are all a little bit different, and and I use them as like a border around one small section of my garden, and it looks great because it divides it from the lawn, but it doesn't look too. I'm not into symmetry and things looking too
Mhm.
formal. obviously.
hmm Yeah, I had a designer come in and lay my flagstone patio for me, and he says he loved it because it was so shabby chic for my backyard. And I said, "That's perfect. That's me, shabby
Shabby
chic."
chic, I like it.
Yeah. Another thing that you showed, uh, or that we talked about even in our practice session, was using window frames and door frames in the garden. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about what you've done with the window frames.
So window frames, the only window frame that I've actually ever put up, what I did was I had a window basket still attached to it. So I literally used it as a container, but hung it from a tree. Um, you told a great story about the doors that you saw somewhere.
Yeah, we actually did it for an exhibit. So we gathered doors right before our holiday open house, and we put the doors and door frames in the garden, and then had wreaths on it so that people could get ideas for different wreaths that they could put in. And it was stupendous. And I've seen it in different gardens where you just have a door or a door frame in the garden, so you're going from one garden room to the other, literally by walking through a doorway, and that gave so much emphasis to it. So I think going to secondhand stores and garbage dumps and everything else is a nice activity on a day that we're not going to do any gardening. I also like putting a window frame in and backing it with a mirror so that that will give you more light in the garden, more reflection.
Okay.
Oh, you're showing the thing. So what else do you have to talk to us?
Someone requested that I share it. I saw it down at the
Excellent.
bottom, so I figured I would just pop it back up. Hope that's okay.
Yeah, excellent. And with your stepping stones, concrete can do so much for you. Something else the audience could think about is making hypotufa uh, uh, troughs so that you can put your little alpine plants in and do it that way. And much easier than spending a couple $100 on a true concrete trough that would be used in a garden. How I'm trying to think, what else, what other crafty ideas do you have to share with us?
Hmm.
A fairy garden. Somebody wanted to ask about a fairy garden.
Fairy gardens are definitely a specialty for me because I have a daughter and two nieces who they're now teenagers, but when they were little, we used to go to fairy festivals. And down here at one of the gardens down near me, they have a fairy house
Hmm
exhibit every year.
We could say that, the Anne Marie Sculpture Garden.
Yes, yes. Okay, I didn't know if I was allowed to say it, but yes.
Yeah, we want to promote gardens.
So Anne Marie has their fairy festival or fairy houses every year, and ever since they started doing it, I started making my own fairy houses too.
hmm My
Usually with young people, so they've always turned out a little bit different. The one that I remember the most was right after Halloween was over. One of the girls bought one of those pumpkins at the craft store that you can hollow out,
mhm.
and she hollowed it out and put little fairy house stuff in it and then kind of tucked it into a corner in the garden, and it was absolutely adorable.
hmm My favorite that I saw down there was a fairy house made from flip flops. And if you can imagine a flip flop fairy house, say that a couple times fast and see how it goes. But yes, keep your eyes open and go to some of these other uh, gardens and see what they're doing in their gardens. We don't do crafts so much in the Smithsonian Gardens. We're more of a formal garden look, but I can see us turning one day over and doing an entire fairy garden someplace. I think that would be fun and very good, very imaginative. Now, somebody also had a question about that top rock for the Zen rocks.
Uh-huh.
How did you get that to stay on board?
That one actually, thank you for asking that. I forgot to mention that one. You can tell is purposely slightly thicker than the other rocks, and I actually drilled halfway through it.
Ah,
Hmm.
and people are concerned about the marine glue, but I've used it in many different situations. Always be someplace where the ventilation is fabulous. I would only do it outdoors because I'm a chicken for trying to,
Absolutely, and you
yeah.
want to wear gloves and make sure that it's somewhere where nobody's going to touch it. A pet isn't going to touch it, anything like that. Some people use silicone, or is it silicone to, but I just think the marine glue sticks a little bit better.
hmm I do too. And once it hardens, it really isn't a problem. And I did because I am very conscious about what I'm putting in the garden. I never found any studies that said there was any wildlife affected by using marine glue, but there's always the first. So do the precautions that work for you. And I like the idea of keeping it out of the reach of pets. I think that's ultimate. But those bird feeders can be a problem with pets too. My dog used to love to eat those, so I could never put them in my
Right.
garden. So
I do not have a dog, so I can have delicate things in my garden. So
yeah. Now, somebody asked if there are any websites that we could recommend, but on air, I'm not going to recommend anything. But I would think that if you would Google crafts, Pinterest probably is the best place. Do you not agree?
I am a big fan of Pinterest. Yes, am I allowed to say that?
Yes, we have a Pinterest account. Go on to our Pinterest account.
Yes.
We're big fans of
So
Pinterest. Yes.
want to type in words like upcycling.
Your sound just went out, and I'm not sure why. Try unplugging, and plugging in again for your.
Now?
Yep, nope, it's still sound. You know, whoever bought our microphones for our computers at work, we're going to have to reinvestigate them. Melinda is, you can't tell by her background, it's a beautiful fall background, but it is fabulous that we are highlighting what you can, or we're disguising what you can't see, which is the lovely lockers in the room that we make all of our labels for our gardens in. So, nope, still can't hear you. There's something. Unplug the audio video connection for the camera and then plug back in. But there's a question that come in: how fast does marine glue dry? And we're told 8 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes. Still cannot hear you. This is something that we are constant. Oh, you're hiding in the leaves now. So I would say leave things in until you're certain on it, but I would hold it so about 4 minutes to be able to let the marine glue dry and let it set. So Melinda is going to try to do some work to see if she can get back on with sound. And in the meantime, I'm looking to see anything else that we have for questions. Anybody else have any questions that we can answer? But this is a great opportunity to go out in your garden and look to see what's available. Okay, let's see if we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's all it
No?
took. Thank you. Sometimes,
Okay.
no. So I got the question: what is our favorite outdoor art? Do you have an art piece or artwork that has resonated with you?
Has resonated with me. So I would say some of my favorite outdoor art would come from Japanese gardens. I really, really enjoy the little shrines that they have. Uh, the the way that everything flows together. The rock stacking is actually from Japanese gardens. It's actually to symbolize water in gardens where there isn't any water. And I just really like the form of things that they put in Japanese gardens.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite that I've ever seen was at the Walker Garden, a sculpture garden in where was I? In San Francisco, and no, I'm sorry, Minnesota. I apologize to Walker Garden. It's in Minnesota and in Minneapolis, and it was fabulous because they had an entire collection of wind chimes in this little circle of trees, this little forested area. So it was audio plus video because you could see the light catch on the pieces and you could hear all that sound. So when I get a big enough garden, when I grow up, I'm going to get a grove of trees and uh, let that inspire me and put in my sound garden because to me that was absolutely fabulous. Okay, so any other questions that we have out there? I would say this is the perfect time of year to peruse your Pinterest, other gardens. Think about what you can do to make your garden special. Start going to some of our secondhand stores. Maybe you can follow Melinda to the dump and see what people are pulling in. Do remember you're not allowed to take things out of the dump itself when you're visiting. They frown upon that, but maybe you can
That is
catch it before the person puts it in the dump. But please go use your imagination and really make your garden shine. A garden is yours. Let your personality show through, shine through, and then that's what will make yours unique. And then watch the local gardens. A lot of them at this time of the year offer classes, and I'm sure now they're all going to be virtual classes, but watch and see because they will have more hints for you of what you can do in your garden. Next week, we are going to do more craft too. We have moved into our holiday season, and our holiday season next week, we're going to show you how to do some holiday centerpieces. So we're looking forward to sharing that time with you, and we'll work on our sound a little bit more and make sure that that shines as well as the crafts and our speakers. Thank you, Melinda.
Thanks, Cindy.
Any passing words and any final words, I should say.
My final words are really echoing what you said. Your garden is your own. Don't let anybody tell you what's right or wrong. Do what makes you happy.
I agree. And if a sculpture, if a person that was trained as a professional sculptor can make pink flamingos and blue swans to put in gardens, think what you can do to be able to make your garden shine. Thanks to everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Melinda.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
thanks.